Welcome to a moment with MKJ, Makovo Joshua. Good morning. It is quite a chilly morning, Friday morning, and welcome to MKJ Talk Show. Well, just revisiting what we had last week, that is on Fast, last Friday. We had a topic about the new beginning, and we interrogated what really a new beginning is, and we send in requests that you might ask questions about this, or any comments, or share views about the new beginning. And yes, we are lucky we got a question from one of our listeners. Just to go through it, we had team question: should you always begin when you go to a new place? Well, two answers came in. One from Lagos, Nigeria, from Dari. And this is the answer to your question, team. No, you don't. You just find a way to fit in. And then we had a second answer to your question from Leah in Nairobi, and she said, I think it depends with what you are beginning, since on some instances you'll have to start afresh. If you have been promoted from an administrator to a manager, you will get added education and then continue. But if you had a printing business and you want to do farming, then you start from ground zero. Well, I do hope those answers quite help you, team. With me, it's quite a good day and quite pleasant to have such answers. Well, for now, we will take a break and then we will resume back. And we have a surprise for you. We have a guest. She's an amazing person, an amazing soul. Well, she'll get to introduce herself. I did not want to do that for her. And our today's topic is: why does the church neglect politics? Perhaps you could give in your views or prepare your questions for that. Thank you. Welcome to a moment with MKJ, Makovo Joshua. Welcome back to MKJ Talk Show. With me in studio today, I have with me
Ayanda Joshua, like before. Welcome to today's podcast. I still remain my humble self, Ayanda Joshua, and thank you for answering our questions last week. And we pray that God give us more zeal and empowerment to finish this.
Great. My name is Makovo Mbaga, and with me in studio, our guest today is
Shalom Joki.
Shalom, tell us more about you.
Shalom Joki, I'm a 23-year-old student of economics in University of Nairobi, so that's what I do right now. But mainly I'm a born-again Christian. And because the topic of today's politics, I should maybe disclose my politics. I'm a feminist, I'm a Pan-Africanist, and I am an anti-capitalist. Those are the three tenets of my politics. Yeah.
Well, you had it yourself. She is worthy, a guest for today's topic. Why does the church neglect politics? So to get into this topic, or rather to delve into this topic, Shalom, what do you think is the church standing in terms of what should the church be doing to the society?
So if we understand the church to not necessarily just be the building, but the body of Christ, each and every one of us, I think the church has many roles to play in society. First of all, it's supposed to be a reflection of God to society, especially the non-Christian part of our world is supposed to be a reflection of who God is. I think we're also supposed to give direction to the world because the author and finisher of our faith, Jesus, is the way, the truth, and the life. He's the direction. So we should mirror that. We should be able to give direction to the world. We should be able to give clarity. Yeah, pretty much.
Quite true. I think I subscribe to what you thought that the church should be a guideline of principles that are likely like God, Christ-like. Yeah. So what about politics? What is your view on politics?
So when I talk about politics, I think a lot of us are understanding of politics. I may be wrong, but I'm assuming a lot of us understanding of politics perhaps has been polluted with the media in terms of we just think of it as campaigns and what politicians do at rallies and what they argue about, etc., etc. But when I speak of politics, I don't necessarily speak about those leaders and their lives and their actions, but I speak about conviction and belief about how the world should be. And that's why my politic is feminist. I believe in feminism, in the dismantling of patriarchy. I believe in Pan-Africanism, which is the uplifting and the unity of people of African descent, not just on the continent but around the world, in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, etc., etc. And I am anti-capitalist because I don't support the capitalist system. I think it's exploitative, and I think that African people, as I said, that my politics is for African people. I think we have no hope for freedom and prosperity within the system of capitalism. So that's why inherently it cannot be something that I support. Yeah.
Well, narrowing this topic down to the church in Kenya and politics in Kenya.
Yeah.
What mode of politics do you think happens in Kenya, and what's the church view of that mode of politics in Kenya?
So I think Kenya obviously is a capitalist nation. That's what we subscribe to. I think it's also what has been described as a neo-colonial nation. So while yes, nominally, or we somehow got independence, I mean, we're still very much tied to those relationships of colonialism. So it's a neo-colonial nation, a neo-colonial capitalist patriarchal, meaning that like many parts of the world, it's still a system that where power is concentrated around men. Mainly that, yeah. And of course, politics is very much influenced by ethnicity as well. So that's a lens through which we organize ourselves. Our political leadership is recruited based on ethnicity. So if I could summarize, yes, that's how I would describe the Kenyan political scene.
Quite true. At times I question this very topic. Why does the church neglect politics? And I tend to think or feel that the church in Kenya is not quite neglecting politics per se, but rather it's a way, it's the impressions we get that the church is not participating in politics. Yet within or rather behind the four, actually the church does participate in politics. What's your view on it?
I think that question can be answered in two ways. On one part, the church does neglect politics in the sense that a lot of issues that we grapple with are not discussed in church. A lot of material realities of people are not discussed in church, at least in most churches. Perhaps there are churches that do that. Issues of equality, issues of justice, issues of corruption, though it's usually mentioned just as a by the way to lighten up a sermon. Issues of exploitation, violence, etc., etc. I don't think they're discussed in depth in church today, as was our legacy. Like historically, the church has been very political, but as per now, I would say that it's not necessarily how it is with the church. However, the other way of answering that question, that even that presumably a political stance of the church, that it's not involved in politics, it's a political decision. So you're right that the church is involved in politics, but it's a politic that silences, in my opinion, or rather ignores the issues of the people, especially the most vulnerable people, whether it be women, it be people with disability, poor people, ethnic minorities. I think it ignores them, and that is a choice. It's a political choice to center people who are wealthy, people who are powerful, because even when the church makes a decision that the only time it's going to talk about politics is when there's a local MP, na amepatiwa the stage to campaign or to talk about whatever they want, and that's where they start saying, oh, the way they are saved, but I don't know, they struggle, blah blah blah. So it's a political decision, but it's a decision that ignores bread and butter issues of people and focuses on a politic that centers the powerful. So whether the powerful be politicians themselves or be wealthy people, again with prosperity gospel and all that we know, whether it be focusing on men, a politic that only does not challenge the subjugation of women in society, a politic that, you know, it ignores a lot of material issues of people. I mean, that is the policy the church has chosen, which is the status quo in Kenya anyway.
But don't you think? I mean, the church focuses on politics in this way. Not only when an MP passes by, because in our daily lives, politics determines a lot of the kind of lifestyle we live until date, and even in our future, it will still determine. Observing it from this lens, that the church, most politicians still have churches to go to, and whenever they appear, yes, our pastors or our reverends or our bishop or our priests give them a chance to change our minds or talk on the pulpit, and somehow they affect the way we think or the way or somehow influence what the church passes on to its congregation. And it amazes me that we think it is really neglecting politics, yet every single day we interact with people who are politicians within our church, not just during campaigns. People who are working within the system, not on the higher levels of rank as a politician, but people who are working in the belief of that politician. I don't know.
So when, maybe in this context, when I speak of church as well, I'm speaking about organized religion, not individuals themselves, because church people, a lot of church members, a lot of Christians are very political, like especially around the election cycle, you will find their Facebook is filled with campaigning for a person or criticizing a person or sharing videos about someone's rally and what they say to this one and the mudslinging. So people are political in a sense, but when it comes to church, when it comes to the gathering of believers, that somehow is not reflected. Even if people's individual people's politics is individual, it's usually like in the back burner when they are away from church. When it comes here, it's not discussed, it's not seen in church per se, whether it is a good politic or a bad politic, whatever. It's just basically not discussed, in my opinion.
Actually, what you've just said has opened my mind to a certain question which I have been trying to ask myself for a couple of times now. In West Africa, where I come from, you realize many pastors coming out as a politician to hold a post. What can you say about that? Is it right for a pastor to come out and fight for a post, like a presidential post, a gubernatorial post? What can you say concerning that? Now that we're talking about politics in church, most of our members are politicians. Do our pastors, must they come down low to that level also to drag for this, I call it in quotes, worldly seats?
So me, based on my anti-capitalist and my politics, I don't necessarily believe at all in being part of the state in any way, of the state the way it exists right now. I wouldn't be interested at all. However, I don't think it's wrong. Just as in and of itself, I don't think it's wrong for a pastor to want to vie for a political seat. Perhaps it depends with what they are doing. Perhaps it depends with what they are standing for, what is their position. Although sometimes we may say that theoretically it sounds good, but then practically we have seen a lot of pastors who get into politics and they change completely. They become what they were criticizing.
Because the Bible makes us understand it. The Bible says, "Do not be yoked with unbelief."
But the Bible is a record, something that I was thinking about. The Bible is a record of Jewish political history. The Bible, especially the Old Testament, is as political as it gets, and God is at the center of that politics. Whether it is through the story of the kings of Israel, the judges, it's a record of the political history of the Jewish people. So you can't say necessarily the political arena in and of itself is ungodly for unbelievers. I don't think you can restrict God to only issues of religion. God is everywhere. He's in issues of commerce, he's in issues of relationship or marriage or politics. So theoretically, we cannot say there's something wrong with a pastor entering into politics. But practically, we know what that usually means. Most times, they become as corrupt as everyone else. So there's that.
Well, I share in the same view. I don't think it's wrong for a pastor to vie for any position. I mean, he wants to be a leader, and a leader is a position that has been there since time,
Yeah.
And I think it's godly to be a leader. It just depends with how you use or you do your leadership. What are your core values? What is the motive of you wanting to be a politician? Or are you going to live up to that standard of being the good politician?
Yeah.
Who is Christ-like? That is the only question. You need to just evaluate yourself and know, am I going to do this the right way? Yeah. Well, now that you've brought the issue about the Jewish politics and religion, go dating back to Christ, and I see him as a political person at times. And when we say the church, why does the church neglect politics? If Christ himself did, I don't think he really parted himself away from politics, because the people who really fought him majorly are kingdoms that were in threat courtesy of his leadership.
Yeah.
What would your view be on that?
So even when I hear people say that, the church should not be involved in politics, to me it sounds so weird, because you don't even understand the church then. You don't understand the history of Christianity, because the foundation of Christianity is Christ and his crucifixion. Because through that we get our salvation. And his crucifixion was very political.
True.
It was a form of state violence, because he was a threat to the Roman Empire and also a threat to the Jewish religious leadership. The Jewish religious
It's allowed.
the Jewish religious leadership was like the local elite who are like foot soldiers for the Roman Empire. The same way, like for example, in colonialism in Kenya, there were some Kenyan collaborators, the chiefs, blah, 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 who were sort of stooges for the British Empire. So he was a threat to both the Pharisees and everything, and also Caesar. So his crucifixion was a manifestation of that. So if you can understand that salvation came through a political event, how then can you separate religion from politics?
You can't. Quite a tough and amazing views about how does the church neglect politics today. Well, we will take a short break, and then kindly do tune in. Don't touch that dial. Keep with us here in studio. Welcome to A Moment with MKJ, Makovo Joshua. Welcome back from wherever you are tuned in, Lagos to Nairobi. We appreciate you. Quite true when Shalom says that the very foundation of our salvation was an event that was political. And I agree, truly you cannot separate the church from politics. So, in essence, the church today does not really neglect politics. Shalom, perhaps you could delve us more into another perspective of this.
Yeah. So still in line with the relationship between religion and specifically Christianity, but religion in general and politics, and particularly a revolutionary politics. The Guinean revolutionary leader, Sekou Toure, he was the independence leader when Guinea got its independence in the late 1950s. He wrote about revolution and religion. He contended that revolution and religion are connected in that they are both products of human consciousness, and they both proclaim and organize a constant struggle. Revolution is a struggle for life here and now. Religion is a struggle for life after death, but this life after death is of course influenced by the present. And that revolution and religion are not ends in themselves, but they are means which people use for social objectives. So even if we go back now, since we're talking about African history, historically the church has been very much involved in politics on this continent and for African peoples throughout the world. I mean, if I'm reminded of African inland churches during colonial Kenya, they sort of had their own separate sect of religion that was against the paternalist interpretation of scripture that the Christian missionaries were using at the time, that justified and legitimized colonialism. I mean, these AIC churches started a lot of schools, provided a lot of services to neglected communities in native reserves, in rural areas, etc. And even going further from Kenya, if you go to South Africa, I mean, we all know Desmond Tutu.
True.
And how the church was so important in the struggle against apartheid. And then again, we go outside the continent, we go to America and the Black American Civil Rights Movement, Martin Luther King. The church was in the center of that. So there's a history that we seem to have forgotten and moved away from, of how the church led the revolution, led in politics, and set the stage and set the narrative. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised right now when we see the kind of politics we have, because the church seems to have lost its mandate of guiding the world. Yeah, so that's why I think it's urgent for the church to resume its tradition, its radical tradition. Yeah.
It is a challenge to you, the church, that you need to step up, to go back to where you should be, guiding this society and influencing the political arena today. And I remember, I look at it this way. At times when people are campaigning and they come back to the church to pick their blessings or want to be prayed for. And that still shows that church has a great influence towards the politics that we see today. What other call would you make to the church? What does the church need to do really to achieve or rather to influence the politics today?
Yeah. I think if we're going to talk about what needs to change, we have to first of all see what is the problem right now. Like, why is the church behaving the way it does? And I think there are so many reasons that we can give for that. I mean, one of them would be almost what we were talking about in the beginning. There's a sort of alliance between religious elites and political elites. Most of the time, religious leadership is usually used to legitimize a certain leader, to anoint them. They go for anointing service, and because the church has influence in society, people know that if they go to church and this church endorses this politician, of course it improves their chances of winning. So I mean, we have to first talk about the unrighteous alliance between religious leadership and political leadership, and how religion is usually like brought up to sanctify a certain leader. I mean, there are times even in me, I'm a Kikuyu, so I'll speak about it openly. Sometimes in Kikuyu radio, you'll hear sometimes how they talk about a certain leader as being almost chosen by God, anointed from God, like the chosen one. And I don't see how it's biblically supported, because then you know a tree by its fruit, and I don't see how this fruit is godly. So then how can this be anointed by God? And I think it's imperative for the church to start questioning these things, and us in the church, those of us who, because then again, power always corrupts. Even if you have power in church leadership, it will corrupt you. So those of us who are the majority in the church, we should start questioning when our leaders begin to endorse things that are not correct in politics, because it affects us at the end of the day.
Because my belief of politics or alignments, you must share the same kind of ideologies or leadership schemes that you're putting in place for this, or sharing the same beliefs. But you find most politicians just pop in when it is time for them to
Convenient, yeah.
exactly when it is time for them convenient to come and be endorsed by a leader, a religion leader, who does not even share in the kind of ideologies they hold or even in their manifesto. But some of the religion leaders still go ahead and endorse them or are seen with impressions just to pose with them. They're not speaking it out, but we can see through the lens that this is just endorsing this person, which is quite wrong. So the church needs to observe that and do it right. I think if we need to endorse someone as a church, that someone must be a believer in the right religion, or must be Christ-like for you to endorse him, or you must have a belief in the kind of manifesto they hold and know truly they are going to stick by it. Because again, they make promises which are just verbal during that campaign time, and when they step in, things completely change.
Though I'll disagree, Kidogo. I don't think I don't know. I don't think someone being a believer is the most important thing to me, because there are people who say they are believers, but how they behave is quite different. And also, I don't know. I don't believe in. I think I'm so confident in my God. I don't believe in suspicion of other religions. I mean, I can coexist peacefully with people from other religions. So I don't necessarily have to. This person does not necessarily have to be a Christian for me to agree with them and work with them. But also, I wouldn't want us to focus too much again on electoral politics, because I think, first of all, that happens only once 5 years. Secondly, it's so limiting. There's only so much you can do. I don't believe you can transform the Kenyan state as it is. I think it needs some kind of revolutionary move for us to create a different Kenya for ourselves. So I think one of the things would be the church needs to be involved in creating that new world we're talking about. It can be in small ways. It can be basically just living what you preach. Small ways: caring for widows, caring for orphans, standing up against extrajudicial killings, especially churches that exist in poor communities, which usually have their largest following. Actually, most Christians are poor. That's a fact, because then again, most of Kenya is poor, unfortunately, but it's the truth. Speaking against things that affect these people, issues of extrajudicial killings by the police, issues of violence, issues of domestic violence, because the church also sometimes it funicas that thing. We just go for marriage counseling. This man has been abusing the wife. We go for marriage counseling and doesn't speak out about issues of rape. Exactly. And I wanted to read a quote here that says that faith's quest for understanding must be rooted in the seedbed of practice and must lead in turn to salvation in the concrete. A position summed up in the quip that we need to adopt the legendary Noah principle. No more prizes for predicting rain. Prizes are only for building arcs. So we should move away from predicting rain and going to building the arcs. Move away from saying, this is bad, we shouldn't treat women badly, we should never judge someone based on their class. No, now build the arc, create a new world. Do you have women in your church leadership, for example? Do you care for the poor people who come to your church? Do you care for the homeless people? As in, do you care for disabled? Is your church even disability friendly? I mean, yes, we have faith that God can cure everything, but there are times where we have the disabled amongst us, and before then, we should be able to care for them. So there are things that the church can do in concrete ways. And even in the early church, in the Acts of the Apostles, you can read stories of how the early church was meeting together and they were sharing all their possessions, and no one was lacking in anything. Nothing was in my private property. They were sharing in things, and no one was lacking in anything. So yeah, I think the church should. These are some of the things you can do. Live what you preach.
And what you're saying is quite practical, because I look at it. Kenya, we have a population of kitu kama 40 million.
Yeah.
And we have so many churches. If the churches could begin to do what you're saying, then the political Kenya will begin to change in terms of faith, in terms of even standards of living, because some churches are very rich, and you find that richness is just those riches are just
concentrated
exactly
on a few.
Yet the congregation can perhaps partake in a little piece of that in terms of those who are homeless, those who are needy, those who are orphans. they can do something instead of waiting for the politician to give this someone who is an orphan a job or something.
Yeah.
Which is something the church can do.
And you know, the thing also, funny enough, with the church, it focused so much on prosperity gospel of
True.
getting and not giving, like helping. Giving maybe is only like giving to church, but then again that goes to enrich a particular, most times a religious elite. I think the prosperity gospel somehow has become a downfall.
True.
But then again, it's the sign of the times we live in. I mean, we live in a hyper-capitalist country and world where everything is about money, and the church conforms to that. And also, it's because I strongly believe that the Kenyan church and African churches in general are very, very much influenced by American evangelicals.
True.
And a lot of American evangelicals, especially around post-60s, post the civil rights movement, post Martin Luther King, the state, what it did is it tried to co-opt the American church, specifically the Black American church, because it could see that the Black American church was becoming a threat. It was questioning injustice. It was questioning violence against Black people. So they co-opted it. Like now they began endorsing a particular type of preacher and a particular type of preaching that moves away from justice and moves more to prosperity, which can coexist together. And I think that we shouldn't hyper-focus on only one. But if anything, if we're going to hyper-focus, we should hyper-focus on justice, because that's who God is.
True.
So yeah, so there's that cooptation, and because then again we copy a lot of what America does. It infiltrated our most favorite preachers, the most iconic American preachers. They all have a certain line of thinking that is no coincidence. That is what we are seeing in the Kenyan church today as well. And so that was the Black American church. The white American church, for the most part, has always been reactionary. Has always supported, for the most part. Not all, but a lot of them have supported racism, exploitation, militarism, all those things. So I don't have much to say about them. But these are things we should question. We should revisit our, like I was saying, our radical tradition and where did we go wrong. The scripture itself, which is what is our foundation, but also our radical tradition, especially our heroes in the church. For example, I don't know if you've heard of Reverend Timothy Njoya. This
I
guy,
remember Njoya's story.
so you remember him? Yeah, he was like a staunch activist in the times of Moi, in the dictatorship of
True.
Moi, and he suffered for it.
He
He suffered
did.
seriously for
He
it. I mean,
did.
today he still has those wounds,
did.
but that was an era where the church was unshakable. Like the church was very loud and clear that we're very much against dictatorship and we're against tyranny. And I mean, partly also the reason the church is these days moving away from its political tradition because of that kind of persecution they went through that time. I think, to be fair to the church, to say it's all our fault, partly it's the kind of terror we went through during that time. There was a lot of people are being exiled, people are being tortured, people are being killed. So there's still that. But now that we have the freedoms we have, why don't we take advantage of that?
Yeah, true. Right now we do have some little form of freedom.
Yeah.
Because I remember during Moi's era, it was quite tyrannical.
Yeah.
Tyrannical, and even religion leaders suffered a lot. Not only in Joy, I remember there was also a row between the Archbishop then, or Catholic, and opposing views, politics and stuff.
Yeah.
They used to be back and forth about it. Yeah, it's quite nice views here about how does the church neglect politics today? Does the church neglect politics today? And now that we know the problem, and we know what needs to be done, I think it is just right to do it.
Yeah.
Because we stand in the face of justice as a church, and even as a country and as a people. And even yourself, you would wish your future to be treated within that same justice. Well, from us, it is your parting card.
My parting shot.
Kindly, Shalom, give us your parting shot.
Oh, yeah, my parting shot is, again, we go back to a religious radical tradition. We have to, unseat those elements that are pushing us away from what is the calling of God for us. Just the same way Jesus unseated them, the same way he created he was saying the kingdom of God is near. He destroyed what was there present and created a new kingdom. And I think that we need to begin to question things. I think this podcast is a good platform for a beginning.
Sure.
We need to start questioning, we need to read, we need to discuss, we need to give room for debate. And just challenge ourselves that we have to create a new dimension. The church has to begin to be relevant. Otherwise, it's very easy for things to go to obscurity, for us to become obscure in the especially amongst young people. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to quit to just listening to prosperity gospel and begin to change our minds. Joshua, do you have something to say just before we close?
It's been a good conversation between. I think Shalom has did a good job shedding more light on the church and the politics and why is the church neglecting. I know many people out there now, you can know why the church is neglecting politics and the solution to that problem and to that cause. And you mentioned something that Christians are poor. Yes,
it's true.
Honestly speaking, I agree with you, because if you look at the Arab world, the Arab world and the Western world, who is more richer than the Arab world? Are richer than the Western world.
Western world to mean okay.
Because
you're talking about Western world, you're talking about America, Australia, Europe. Those are quite rich.
Well, Western African.
That's where gospel rise from. Let me use that word. I'm saying Western world because gospel rise from that point.
So like the non-Muslim, non-Islamic world.
Yes, non-Islamic world. But if you look at them, it's like the Arab continent. They are more richer than
than Africa, the biggest prayers, we are prayer warriors here.
Exactly, and this will drive me to a question to everybody out there. Why is it that the Arab world are more richer than the Christians? Let me use that quote. Why is it that the Arab, they are more richer than the Christian? Please drop your answers. This is the question of the week. Drop your answer to 5fsmission@gmail.com. 5fsmission@gmail.com, or this number 0743 94 77 09. 0743 94 77 09. Makovo, over to you. Thanks for coming, Shalom.
Thank you for having me.
We want to have more of you.
Yeah. I come and talk about feminism.
No, we're not going to have that topic.
If you want feminism, make sure you comment on that. Discussions on that, make sure you give that as an answer.
Okay, please drop your comments and discuss your talk about feminism if you want it to come up as soon as possible, as she has said, and prepare for the other gender.
Well, it is quite a pleasure from us here at MKJ Talk Show. Well, it has been quite interesting and challenging. Hearing it from Shalom herself, we are grateful for your time, for creating your time and being with us here in studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
About feminism, wherever you're tuned in, kindly don't just sense that we need to talk about it. But if you do and you're interested in having that discussion, then we will oblige and welcome a Shalom back to studio to talk about it. I hope you have your questions ready for this topic. Kindly do send them to our email, just to recap it again, 5fsmissions@gmail.com or makovombada@gmail.com, or you can send any questions, comments, critiques to these mobile numbers. Just SMS 0743 947 709, 743 947 709, or 0714 884 123, 0714 884 123, and we will be sure to get back to you. From us, it's a goodbye until next Friday at 7 a.m. Welcome to A Moment with MKJ, Makovo Joshua.